Bristol City fans are getting a refund from the players after that dire result at Preston on Tuesday night.
Yeah, so the players, like I said, we know it was such a poor performance, and the 312 fans that came up, the players have come together in the club and decided that us as players are going to refund those fans, you know.
So what's gone wrong at Ashton Gate? Brilliant stadium, big plan, but a club record of league defeats and just 4 wins in the last 24. And a manager who, by his profession's standards, seems bulletproof. Well, I asked someone from the club to come on the show, but I haven't had a response from Bristol City. David Lloyd, though, is a former supporter liaison officer at the club and joins me now. You must be depressed looking at what's happened this season, David.
Yeah, as a City fan I am. I certainly didn't expect at this stage in the season. I didn't think we'd be necessarily in the playoffs, but I thought we'd be looking up and not down. And clearly to be in this position is not great.
But what's got, I mean, the season started, the stadium is built, the plan is put in place. Mark Ashton, this sort of corporate director of football, if you will, pulling the strings, young up-and-coming coach. How could it go disastrously wrong? What has happened there, do you think?
Well, I don't know, and if I knew the answer to that, I could give you the next week's lottery results.
You're a man who's got your opinion is what counts.
Just to go back to what you're saying about Mark Ashton, you talk about being a corporate man. Actually, for a long time, City fans have been saying, "Oh, we need a football man. You know, it's all run by business, and we need a football man in there." Well, Mark is a former player. He was a chief executive of the West Bromwich Albion Foundation. He was chief executive at Watford. You know, and he's there now running the football side of things. So the fans have got what they've been asking for a long time, which is a football man in place. Nobody was questioning his judgment.
But he's brought in about 23 players. They talk about players for the future. Then suddenly there's this panic halfway through, so we've got to get a bit of experience in. Now we've got 3 young coaches who haven't exactly got a bulging CV. You would worry about the experience and the background for what's happening at that club. How do senior players look and say, well, you guys know what you're doing?
Well, I don't know, you'd have to ask the senior players that, but clearly Steve Lansdown and the board have taken a decision, they've taken a view that they think, rightly or wrongly, that Lee Johnson and his current coaching staff are the right people to see it through. And Steve has, rightly or wrongly again, decided that it seems now that Lee is going to be there until the end of the season.
Do you think that's the right decision?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because a football manager in the end stands or falls on results, and the results have been appalling. Just at the point at which we thought things had turned round with that fantastic result against Huddersfield, an indifferent performance against Brentford, and by all accounts a really, really poor performance at Preston, and we're right back in the mire again. The problem at this stage of the season, as I see it, is that having decided that they're going to stick with Lee, I don't see at this point of the season that there's an awful lot to be gained by bringing somebody else in.
Well, you can't at this stage, really, can you? If that was going to happen, it would have been maybe a month, 2 months ago.
I think the players, you just showed that clip there of Corey Smith. I think that's a fantastic gesture by the players and the staff as well. Let's not forget that they've also chipped in.
But those players are so long suffering. They've been filling away ends. They've been going in their thousands. They've been filling Ashton Gate, and they've been served a dire football for a lot of the season, haven't they? You just would wonder how it could have been so disastrous that there doesn't seem to be something to tell the fans, hang on, this can turn round in the next couple of games.
Well, for a start, I don't think anybody set out for it to be a disastrous
of course
season.
not, but that's what's happened.
But the danger is, and I know this from experience when I was sporting liaison officer there, when things get tough, the instinct often is, not just in football, but in any industry, if you like, is to raise the drawbridge, batten down the hatches and say, we're going to tough this one out. And I think that's largely what they're trying to do now. My instinct as supporter liaison was always to accept that there were times when that was necessary, but also sometimes I would challenge that view and say, actually, I think the supporters need to be told perhaps a little bit more than we're telling them at the moment. So if it is the intention of Steve and the board to stick by Lee, if that is part of an ongoing plan that they believe will pay dividends in the long term, which I believe it is, although I don't know what the plan is, I think they need to be telling supporters
to get into the Premiership, isn't it? But it's looking very, very, very dodgy at the minute that they're going to stay in the Championship.
Well, it's touch and go, isn't it? You have to admit that. You know, we're just 1 point outside the relegation. Sorry, 1 place outside the relegation zone on goal difference, and it is very, very tight, and it could go either way. But if it is the intention that they're going to stick with Lee, and if there is a plan in place beyond that, That certainly, I would be advising Steve that he needs to perhaps just come out and communicate that clearly. A lot of supporters won't like it. There's clearly a lot of rather nasty, I have to say, anti-Johnson feeling around at the moment, which I don't subscribe to. I understand where it's coming from, because any football fan...
But is there something fundamental? I mean, I'm still pro because you know your football. I mean, I go there. I'm a season ticket holder. I watch this week in and week out. But is there something fundamentally wrong when a club like Preston, who came up a couple of seasons ago with Bristol City, we've seen reports they paid $280,000 on transfer this year coming into the club. Bristol City have spent, what, about 10 million? And yet, look where the respective clubs are. You would say there must be something fundamentally wrong somewhere. But
well,
we don't know what that is.
It looks like there is, but I don't know what it is. I don't work there anymore, and even when I did, I wouldn't necessarily have known the detail of what goes on behind the scenes. I think there clearly is a long-term plan in place, and also quite clearly, this year, for whatever reason, it isn't working.
Do you, in your heart of hearts, how bad would a relegation be this season? Because Bristol Rugby are not looking too clever either for Bristol Sport.
Football is a cyclical game. It is about ups and downs, Steve. It always has been. Obviously, nobody wants City to go down this year, and I'm sure it's not part of the long-term plan. And if they do, there'll be a lot of anger and a lot of distress around Bristol. However, we'll rise again if we do, because that's the nature of the game.
Well, fingers crossed. Thank you very much indeed, David. Thanks for coming in.